There are so many best horror movies of 2024 lists on YouTube right now that I figured, let's just add another one. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out our introduction video. There's a link to it in the description below, and it's going to give you a sense of what the horror movie syllabus is all about. But basically, we look at a particular subgenre of horror, and then we pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But this is something that we're doing now that's different. This is something we've never done before on the channel, something I've actually kind of resisted doing on the channel before, and that is an end of the year top 10 horror movies list to go over the best movies that came out this year in the horror genre. And I've resisted this in the past just because there's a lot of people who do this, and, you know, it's just everybody giving their opinions. This would just be my opinion. But there were so many good horror movies that came out this year. I mean, there's so many really great horror movies that came out this year that I kind of just wanted to do a video like this. I just wanted to talk about them a little bit, tell you guys the stuff that I saw that I really liked. I know I didn't see everything, but I saw quite a bit of it because so much of it was getting buzzed, so many people talking about saying, you got to see this, you got to see that, that I got off my butt and went to the movies, which I don't do as often because, as viewers of the channel know, I tend to be looking backwards. I tend to be looking at movies in the past and talking about those on the channel. It takes up a lot of the time to, go see movies. And so I haven't been seeing a lot of new stuff, but this year saw a lot of new stuff, and a lot of it was great. Really great, so I wanted to talk about it. Now, again, this is my opinion, like everybody else is doing these videos. It's just sharing their opinion, and it's only based on the movies I saw. I didn't see everything, so there's going to be a few things that might be missing here that I just didn't see, and there's going to be a few things that are missing here because even though they were really good, I had to cut it. I'm only doing 10. I had to cut some things, so I had to sacrifice. There's some painful cuts of some movies that I really, really liked quite a bit that just got beat out by these movies that I liked more. So that's what we're going to do here, so we might as well just go ahead and jump into it. But if you like this video, then we can maybe talk about doing some more things like this. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you like this format. But for now, let's just go ahead and get into the best of 2024. In our number 10 spot is Alien Romulus. And Alien Romulus it was fun for me. I really enjoyed this. I was looking forward to it. And for the most part, it met my expectations. It's easily the 3rd best in the series, and I have a deep affinity for the Alien series, so there's a little bit of bias going on in the selection. I'll admit that. But I really liked what Fede Alvarez did with the movie. I liked the look of it. I liked that he really infused it with more horror again and made it feel more like a scary movie like the first movie was. I like that he brought some new stuff to the lore. There were new things about the face huggers and just certain scenes and ideas and concepts that we'd never seen before in an alien movie, like, kind of like the hatching of the alien, if you will, and some of these things, like the anti-gravity stuff, that worked really well. There were some good explanations about, like, the self-shooting gun to explain certain things. I liked the cast. I thought they were good. I thought that the characters, while admittedly a little bit shallow, not really any more shallow than the first Alien movie. I do say that might be controversial, but I do think that's true. And I do think that they had a lot of personality, enough so that I could differentiate them and understand what they were about and want them to live. Where the movie falls a little bit short for me is in all the forced callbacks. Some of the stuff in there that called back to previous movies that I felt very ham-fisted. I didn't like it. It kind of was groan-worthy to me, but I think I'm in the minority. I think other people in the theater really liked that stuff and, hooped and hollered and cheered for it. So maybe I'm just in the minority on that, or I'm a grumpy bear about it, but I didn't like the callbacks. But other than that, I really, really liked Alien Romulus quite a bit. So it makes it onto my top 10. In 9th place, I've got Cuckoo. And Cuckoo's an interesting one because that trailer, when it came out, was so compelling and intriguing. And then when I saw the movie, it was just super weird in what I think is a very wonderful way. It's wonderfully weird. It's such a strange movie, and I can honestly say I haven't really seen anything like it before, and that's a large part of why it's making the list. That and the cast, namely Hunter Schafer and Dan Stevens. Now, Dan Stevens we've talked about before on the channel, and he always brings good work in. But Hunter Schafer is somebody who's new to me. I'm not familiar with her work, and she was outstanding in this movie. She carried this movie, which again is a strange movie, and she's your anchor. She really grounds holds the movie for better and for worse, and I'll get to that in a second, but she is your anchor. She is somebody that you connect with, you care about, and she's giving an incredible performance. I'm very excited to see what she does next. I do like the imagery in this movie. I like the mystery of the movie and what's going on. I do think it kind of spelled it out a little too much maybe at the end, but that's a minor nitpick. And I do think that this movie plays it really serious and straight. Again, Hunter Schafer really bringing the gravitas and the drama to it. And I think maybe they could have done well to lean into the sillier aspects of this movie a little bit, because it's super weird and a little bit silly, but they treat it with the utmost seriousness. Except Dan Stevens, he's bringing, I think, the right energy to this movie, and I think that the rest of the movie could have used a little bit of that slightly camp, energy, just a little bit. But overall, it's just a really weird experience, and I didn't even know how I felt about this movie for a while after I watched it, so I had to sit with it and think about it, which makes it a really great movie. So I really enjoyed this one. It's going to get on the list at number 9. At number 8, we're going with Blink Twice. And Blink Twice was a movie that I actually covered here on the channel as a recommendation, and I'm glad I did because I absolutely loved it. It's got a really solid message that's admittedly a little heavy-handed, but you're having so much fun watching the movie that it doesn't feel so heavy-handed, and in part because of the cast. The cast across the board is stellar, but Channing Tatum really shines as the guy who is kind of a creep, but he's still so damn charming that you can't help but be into him a little bit. And it's a great debut by Zoe Kravitz. She is just crushing this movie. It's visually stunning. It really is captivating. The mystery draws you in, and even though you kind of know where this movie's going, you really kind of don't. And like I said, it's got a really strong positive message that, like I said in the video that we did about this, gets a little muddy at the end there. It does have a little bit of a mixed messaging there, which kind of maybe puts me off on it a little bit. But honestly, it's so good throughout the movie, and I'm so entertained by what's going on. And even though it's like super disturbing in terms of a concept and what they're showing, they're pulling back just enough and leaving just enough to your imagination to really make this work as a fun ride for the most part, even though the underlying things that are happening are really upsetting, trigger-worthy warning, disturbing stuff, but they do a good job of making it light enough to keep it accessible and having enough twists and turns in it to keep you compelled in the mystery so that everything else kind of doesn't wind up feeling quite so rough. Blink Twice really knocked my socks off. I was really happy I got to see that one. Number 8. For number 7, I'm going with Oddity. And Oddity is a little bit less mainstream than the other movies that we've talked about here. And although not to horror fans, I think horror fans were really buzzing about Oddity, which is what drove me to go see it in the first place. And it really did live up to the expectations right from the beginning. The opening of this movie is incredible. It's up there with the all-time great openings in cinema, in horror cinema, because it really grabs you. And some people have argued that the rest of the movie doesn't quite live up to that. I don't know that I agree with that, but I can see the argument being made for that. But I think that the movie has got great atmosphere. It really is just this sense of dread and creepiness. That mannequin is absolutely creepy for sure. And the blind psychic lady is a great character. She's just got a great attitude. The performance is wonderful. All the performances are good in this. And it's just a good, solid mystery that keeps you drawn in and lets you kind of bask in the creepy feel of this movie, the cool setting that is just, dark and disturbing, and you kind of have that, what would I do if I was in this situation kind of feel to it. It's just a really cool, solid, good movie that's enhanced by the direction and the performances, and honestly, really just the cinematography, the whole look of this, the way it's lit, the way it's staged, all of it just gives you that sense of dread and creepiness that really worked for me. I thought that Oddity lived up to expectations, and I thought that it really deserved to be on the list, so it is. At number 6, I'm going with In a Violent Nature. And that might be a little bit controversial because this is a rather polarizing film. I know a lot of people didn't really care for this one or thought it was really overrated. And generally the complaint that I see is that it's just too slow. It doesn't move enough. It doesn't do enough. Not enough happens in it. And I don't feel that at all. I was captivated in this movie the entire time. I loved it. Now, I am a big slasher fan. I love it. Friday the 13th series, one of my favorites of all time. And so I was down for this. I was super excited to see it, and it lived up to my expectations because it did that flip take on a slasher film. You know, it literally puts you over the shoulder of the slasher, kind of like the Friday the 13th game. And I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought that the gore scenes were outstanding in this movie. The yoga girl in particular, just I'd never seen anything like that before. It was fantastic, and I just liked the idea behind it. I do admit about the complaint that at the end it loses its focus a little bit. It switches perspectives and kind of loses what it's going for. And I do agree that it's a very valid complaint. I felt that way too, that the end kind of lost its thread a little bit. But up until then, I thought they created a really cool, interesting new slasher that I wouldn't mind seeing more of, but I also kind of hope they don't do sequels of it because I think this is good as a one-off and just it stands as it is. To me, that felt like art house slasher film, and that's right up my alley. I love that kind of thing. So I was really into it in Violent Nature. I looked at, I talked about it on the channel because I liked it so much. And so I'm definitely putting it on my list. I'm putting it kind of high on my list. I know not everybody's going to dig on that. Not everybody's going to agree with that. And that's okay. But for me, In a Violent Nature really nailed it. Okay, we're in the top five, and for the first one of our top five, in the fifth place, we're going to go with Strange Darling. And I loved Strange Darling, another one that we talked about here on the channel that I was just so enthused about for a number of reasons, including Willa Fitzgerald in the lead and Kyle Gallner as the other lead. And they are giving incredible performances, especially Willa Fitzgerald, who I've always kind of liked, but she really gives a career-making performance in this movie. But the big thing about this movie that really works for people, including me, is the nonlinear storytelling. I haven't seen this done this well in God knows how long. Lots of people do the nonlinear storytelling thing, especially after Tarantino made it so popular in the 90s. But this movie really understood how to use it narratively to give reveals and surprises and keep you just kind of twisting and turning. And they do it so great. The movie also looks beautiful. It's shot in 35 millimeter film by Giovanni Ribisi, of all people. And even though they brag about that at the beginning, which is a little bit weird and kind of a little unnecessary, it does look beautiful. But it's not just the film. It's just shot super well. The lighting is spectacular in this movie. The camera work is amazing in this movie. It's really well paced. This movie just starts and grabs you right from the beginning and does not let you go. And the mystery is good. It's solid. Like I said, this movie is kind of a simple, basic story. It's really not that revelatory, but the way that it's told and the way that it's made is what makes it feel so fresh and original. And I love it. And I wish more people would have seen it because it's the kind of thing where you want to tell everybody they need to go see it, but you don't want to tell them too much because you don't want to spoil the movie for them, which makes it a little bit of a hard sell. But if you haven't seen it, go see it because this movie is definitely top five of the year in a year that's so great. I cannot say enough good things about Strange Darling. In fourth place, I've got Heretic. And honestly, it pains me to have Heretic this low because I absolutely love this movie. This movie was squarely right in my wheelhouse. This is exactly the kind of movie that I want, that I love, and I was here for it. And it's done so well, in no small part because of Hugh Grant giving one of the best performances I've ever seen him give. He's just so good in this movie, but also the two women, Sophie Turner and Chloe East, matching him, keeping up that same energy, giving him what for both narratively speaking and performance wise. It's great. But the real thing that hits for me in this movie is the dissertation on different religions. The whole Monopoly board scene works for me so well, and the concept of explaining or kind of challenging different religions and trying to figure out what the true religion really is works for me super well. This is kind of hitting a sweet spot for me. I like the idea of this setup, which is a great setup, by the way. Mormon missionaries who wind up getting trapped in a house, which has to be a fear, a real fear of them, and just kind of seeing how that unfolded and going in places that you didn't expect it to go was fantastic. It was a lot of fun, good horror. But what really elevated it for me was the folding into all the different religious conversations and discourse. I could have watched a whole movie just about them debating religion. That would have been great for me. And all the other stuff is just the gravy on top. All the creepy stuff is just the gravy on top. This movie may not hit for everybody, may not be as universally liked or loved as I love it, but I deeply, deeply loved Heretic. It would have been one of my favorite for the year, if not for the fact that there's so many good movies that came out this year. So the next three just beat it out that much by a little bit. So. Okay, top three. And in third place, it's Long Legs. And I'll be honest with you, I'm shocked that I'm not putting this number one because I saw this movie three times when it came out. I absolutely loved Long Legs. Now, I know there's been a little bit of the backlash now on it. People were so into it and raving about it when it came out. And I think people have kind of walked that back a little bit now, but whatever. I think it's fantastic. Silence of the Lambs meets The Occult. I'm in for that. Throw in Nick Cage doing a super creepy performance. Definitely in. Micah Monroe doing an amazing performance, maybe the best one I've seen her do, which is saying a lot. And kind of becoming like this, spectrum living hero is just fantastic stuff. I love everything about this movie. It's just so well made. Oz Perkins, who is we've talked about him on the channel before. He's just such a visually intriguing storyteller who really understands mood and atmosphere. And even though he gets slow paced, I love his slow burn thing that he does. The performances, not just Nick Cage and Micah Monroe, but Alicia Witt and Blair Underwood. Like it's so good to see everybody crushing it and just telling a story that is, again, somewhat simple, but it really is focused less on the story and more on the dread or the anxiety, and then kind of mishmashing a bunch of different subgenres into one. I'm telling you right now, we're going to talk about Long Legs more in depth on the channel. I just don't know what subgenre yet because I have a few I can choose from, and that's part of what I love about it. This movie met my very lofty expectations. I loved it, and again, I can't believe that I'm not putting it number one, but the next two movies are just I like them even more. So let's get into those. In the number two spot, I've got Nosferatu. And admittedly, it's possible that there's some recency bias here because as of the time of this recording, I saw it like 2 days ago and I'm really enthused about it. So it may be super high because of that, admittedly, but it also might be the best Robert Eggers movie yet, and that's saying a whole lot. As we know, Robert Eggers is a master filmmaker, and he is on full display here. This film is gorgeous, and when I was watching, I could not get past how gorgeous it was. The gothic look of it, the classic feel of it, the symmetry of the shots, they're just beautiful. Everything is so symmetrically framed. I kind of geeked out over it. I loved it so much. All of the performances across the board are fantastic. Everybody's doing A-level work. And yeah, it's a story that we all know. It's a story that I know super well. And he's not really doing any twists on it. He's not really doing anything super different with it to change up the storyline. He's very true to the source material. And yet it really feels fresh because he's such a good filmmaker. I like that he gave us something so gothic and classic, something that feels old but looks new. And it just really hit for me. People don't make these kind of movies anymore except for Robert Eggers. You know what I mean? Like people don't do classic horror like this and aren't, it's like almost like people are afraid they want to modernize it too much and they don't want to kind of like just let it sit in its classic setting. But not Robert Eggers. He never met a period piece film he didn't like, and I'm glad for it because this one scratched my itch. This hit everything. I had super high expectations for this one, and it met all of those. I was so enthralled by it, and I can't wait to see it again, frankly. But it's a beautiful film, and it doesn't make number one, but it makes number two. Before we get to number one, I'm going to pause for a second and give you an honorable mention for a movie that didn't make the top 10, doesn't even sniff the top 10, but was probably the best theater experience I had all year. And that's M. Night Shyamalan's Trap, which is a terrible movie. It's awful, but it's hysterically fun. It's a ridiculous premise that is coupled with motivations of characters that don't make sense, plot holes galore, dialogue that is some of the cringiest that M. Night maybe has ever written, except for maybe Lady in the Water. It's just on so many levels wrong. It's so narratively flawed and ridiculous, and I loved it. I loved it because it was so bad. I was in a theater full of people that came there for the same reason I came there on opening night, to see just how gloriously off the rails this movie was going to go, and it did not disappoint. Then the fact that it's basically a 2-hour commercial for his daughter's musical career is just the icing on the cake. By the way, not a bad singer, horrible actor, really not good. She is definitely, she leaves a lot to be desired, and it was a, there's so many mistakes in this movie by M. Night from a narrative perspective and a directing perspective, and yet it's so much fun. And Josh Hartnett brings the energy. His daughter actually in the movie brings the energy. The performances really elevate this movie into something that's very watchable in a fun, so bad it's good kind of way. In fact, will I talk about it in a so bad it's good doctorate level video? Might be. I don't know. But this movie did not disappoint. It's terrible. It's not good at all. But I had to talk about it and mention it here because I did have an absolute blast watching it, and so did everybody else in my theater. And finally, we're at our number one, our best movie of 2024, best horror movie of 2024, and it's The Substance. And I'm not going to be, this is not a unique choice. I know a lot of people are going to pick this, and they should be, because this is the best Cronenberg movie not made by Cronenberg. I didn't come up with that, somebody else did, but it is so true. This is an insane body horror movie. I knew it was body horror going in, but I had no idea what I was in for and how insane it was going to get. It blew my mind. I was there for Demi Moore because I really like her, and I've heard she gives an incredible career defining performance, which she does. Margaret Qualley, who I've been keeping an eye on, she's really good. She's doing great work here too. So the performances are top notch. Dennis Quaid is doing great work, but it's really the director. Coralie Fargay is doing amazing work here. She did a Revenge earlier, and she outdid herself here. The sound design in this movie is mind blowing. The use of color in this is Kubrickian. Kubrick would be proud of this movie. The way she uses the male gaze in this movie to underscore her point and her themes is, her messaging. It's so effective. It's so good. It's so over the top in every way. This movie is so surreal and hilarious and heartbreaking and gross. I can't help but love it. It's the opposite of Nosferatu. It's the opposite of a classic horror story. It is so modern, and yet I feel like it's going to stand the test of time because the messaging of how we look at women in particular and aging in general is just so universal, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. So I think this movie is going to resonate for a very, very long time. And I loved it. I could not get enough of it. And yeah, this is one that I also talked about on the channel. I forced it onto the channel because I was so excited when I watched it that I had to talk about it. And so if you haven't seen The Substance, buckle up. It's quite the ride, but it is definitely, for me, the best movie I saw in 2024. So that's it. That's my list of the top 10 horror movies of 2024. I know I left a lot off because there was a lot of good stuff that I just couldn't fit on the list. They got beat out. There was stuff that I didn't quite get to. Let me know in the comments, what was the stuff that was your top 10? Give me your top 10 list in the comments down below, because I know that there's debate on this, but it's such a good year. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what movie you put in number one. It just matters that we got such good horror movies this year. So we got spoiled this year, guys. Horror fans got spoiled this year, and I couldn't be more happy about that. But now I'm going to get happy and to read a horror trivia pursuit card right here on camera. As you know, I like to read these and try to answer them without cheating, live on camera without cuts. And since we're talking about, since we talked about The Substance and it's a gory movie, let's go with the gore category on the card. And here is the question. What is the name of the character that has no control over her titular trait in 2007's Teeth? And this is a name question. I don't do super well with name questions, but I might know this one. I might actually know this one. I do love Teeth. I think it's a great movie. We talked about it on the channel. It's a little known indie film that people, horror fans are familiar with it, but it really is not mainstream at all, in part because of the vagina dentata subject matter of it. It's something else. That movie is something else. It goes there, and I love it for that. I love how it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but also really disturbing. It's a great film, and I highly recommend it to people who can stomach the subject matter of it, because it's a little seen, and it deserves to be seen more. But the question is, who is the name of the main character? And I do not remember it, but I have a guess. I'm going to take a guess that might be right. I'm not sure. I'll be honest with you. I'm pretty sure I remember the name of the actress, but I don't think I remember the name of the character. But okay, I'm kind of prattling on. Let you guys take a guess also with me. Or if you know it, great, you're going to get it right. But if you don't know it, lock in a guess right now because I'm about to answer with my guess. And okay, so lock in your answer. My guess is Jules. My guess is Jules. I couldn't tell you why other than just that's kind of what came to mind. I'm pretty sure it's Jess Wexler who plays the lead girl, and she's great. She's such a good she gives such a good performance in this movie. But I think the character's name is Jules, but it's just a shot in the dark, frankly. But let's go ahead and take a look at the card and see Dawn O'Keefe. Dawn O'Keefe. So I was not even close to being right on that one. But it's my Achilles heel. Names of characters is not a strong point for me in these questions. If you've been watching the channel for a long time, you know this, and this is an embarrassing reminder of that. Did you guys get it right? Did you guys get Dawn O'Keefe? And if not, what did you guess? Did you guess Jess Wexler? Because that would be kind of funny. But let me know in the comments below what you guessed, or if you got it right. Let me know what your top 10 list is because I want to hear about it. And thank you very much for hanging out. Let me know if you like this kind of video. I'm not sure about it because, like I said, I wasn't sure if I was going to do something like this, but I decided to because I like these movies so much. And if you liked it, maybe we'll do some similar stuff in the near future. But until then, I'm just going to say